10 years ago, a name echoed through every corner of the galaxy: Deathworlders, humans. Their home, Earth, was known for one thing above all else: danger. The planet was so brutal, so harsh, that no alien race dared consider them anything but a threat. From their wild, untamed nature to the unpredictable forces of nature they survived, humanity had earned a fearsome reputation. But the other races of the galaxy, underestimating the full potential of humankind, began to think that perhaps these so-called Deathworlders could be easily conquered. They couldn't have been more wrong. For years, Earth had stayed mostly isolated, a small, unnoticed planet in the vast universe. However, as time passed, the smarter and more advanced alien empires began to realize that humans could either be a threat to their power or a potential ally. Some saw them as a valuable asset, but others, the Zithar Collective in particular, saw an opportunity for expansion. And so, the Zithar Collective, a ruthless and technologically superior alien empire, decided to take action. They set their eyes on Earth with a plan to invade and conquer. They thought that with their overwhelming military might, they could easily crush the humans and add Earth to their growing list of subjugated worlds. Suspense. But as the Zithar fleet approached Earth, something unexpected happened. The first warning signs were subtle: strange signals, sudden shifts in space. As their fleet neared Earth's orbit, they encountered strange phenomena that none of their advanced systems had accounted for. At first, it seemed like interference, perhaps some malfunction. But when they saw the planet in front of them, they realized they were wrong. The humans, it turned out, had been preparing for this moment for decades. Earth's military, underestimating their enemies' understanding of the planet, had developed advanced technologies that even the most seasoned alien generals didn't expect. Cloaking devices, stealth weapons, and highly advanced military hardware. Humanity had created a defense network that made their planet appear primitive to the untrained eye, but was actually a fortress of hidden power. The Zithar fleet, full of confidence, made their move. They deployed a massive fleet of ships, each one bristling with weapons and technology designed to obliterate any opposition. Their plans were set. They thought the humans would put up little resistance. After all, how could an unremarkable species from a backwater planet stand against the greatest empire in the galaxy? But as they began their attack, they quickly realized the truth. Earth was no ordinary planet, and humanity was no ordinary species. They had underestimated their enemy in the most catastrophic way. Action. The battle began in a flash of light and sound as the first Zithar ships entered Earth's atmosphere. Their weapons fired on Earth's surface, but humanity's defense systems kicked into action immediately. A fleet of human ships, cloaked and invisible to enemy sensors, swooped down from above, opening fire on the unsuspecting alien fleet. The Zithar forces, trained for precision and dominance, were stunned. Their ships, designed for overwhelming force, were being torn apart by unexpected strikes from all directions. The human ships moved quickly, like ghosts in the night, avoiding detection with their cloaking technology and attacking with brutal precision. Zithar forces tried to fight back, but it was clear that the humans were using tactics that were unrecognizable to them. One of the Zithar commanders, Orlith, watched in disbelief as his ships fell one by one, exploding in the void of space. "Impossible," he muttered. "How can these primitive creatures possess such technology?" Zithar ships had shields and energy weapons capable of disintegrating entire cities, but Earth's military had developed advanced countermeasures. Laser weapons that could slice through enemy shields, electromagnetic pulses that disabled enemy weapons, and drones designed to target weak points in Zithar vessels. Humanity's guerrilla tactics, honed through years of survival, gave them the edge in this fight. Orlith's fleet tried to regroup, but the humans didn't allow them a moment to breathe. The cloaked human ships swooped in, launching their attacks from unpredictable angles. In the chaos, the Zithar forces made mistakes. Mistakes that the humans were quick to exploit. Visual storytelling. Above Earth, the sky was filled with fire. Bright flashes lit up the darkened void as laser blasts streaked from the Zithar ships and exploded in clouds of glowing debris. Some of the Zithar ships went down in fiery ruins, their once impressive hulls crumpling like paper. As the enemy ships fell, Earth's ships appeared from thin air, emerging from their cloaking devices like phantoms. In the middle of the chaos, humanity's ships flew low over the surface of Earth, dodging enemy blasts as they returned fire. The bright blue oceans of Earth shimmered below, untouched by the destruction above. But up in the sky, the air was thick with smoke and fire, as Earth's defense systems tore into the invaders with all the force they could muster. The Zithar fleet tried to counter the humans' surprise attacks by deploying their own cloaked ships, but it was clear they were no match for the humans' superior strategy. For every Zithar ship that emerged from invisibility, a human fighter appeared out of nowhere to cut them down. Suspense and tension. In the heat of the battle, Orlith had a growing sense of dread. His fleet was in disarray, and despite their advanced technology, the humans seemed to be everywhere, outmaneuvering them at every turn. A silent fear began to take hold of the Zithar commanders. They had expected an easy conquest. They had expected humanity to cower in fear. Instead, they found themselves fighting a war they were not prepared for, a war where the enemy refused to follow the rules. "You were right," Orlith said, turning to his fellow commanders. "The humans are not what we thought. We are facing something different, something far more dangerous than we ever imagined." As the battle raged on, the humans were gaining ground. Their military, though smaller in number, had turned the tide. And for the first time in years, the Zithar collective found itself on the defensive, facing an enemy that was not only stronger than expected, but also far more unpredictable and resourceful. Cliffhanger. The Zithar commanders, now scrambling to regain control, sent out desperate orders to retreat. But the humans, sensing their vulnerability, pressed forward with everything they had. As Zithar ships tried to flee, the humans' most advanced weapon, an experimental long-range strike system, locked onto the enemy flagship. With a single precise shot, the Zithar ship exploded in a massive burst of light, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. As the explosion ripped through the darkness of space, Orlith's voice crackled over the comms, his last transmission echoing in the void. "We underestimated them. The humans had done what no one thought possible. They had defeated the Zithar fleet. But this was only the beginning. The Zithar collective was powerful, and Earth had only just begun to understand the true consequences of their victory. The battle for survival was far from over. And now, humanity had a new question to face. What would the universe do once it realized that Earth was no longer an easy target? The vast emptiness of space was filled with the hum of the Zithar collective's massive flagship as it turned and burned through the atmosphere of Earth. A sudden explosion rattled the ship. A massive unseen force had ripped through its hull, tearing it apart. The Zithar ambassador, Kalek, felt the tremor of the blast as he was hurled through the air, his body thrown against the control panel. The flagship, once a symbol of strength and dominance, was now nothing more than a wreck in Earth's atmosphere. Kalak had only moments to react, desperately trying to regain control, but it was too late. The ship's systems were failing fast, and with a final deafening crash, the flagship plummeted toward Earth, burning as it descended into the planet's atmosphere. Kalek's ship smashed into the Earth's surface, sending a shockwave through the surrounding area. The ground cracked, and the skies darkened with smoke. The ambassador survived, but only just. His body ached from the crash, but he was alive. Stumbling out of the wreckage, Kalek was met by a harsh new reality. He was no longer aboard a powerful warship. He was on Earth, surrounded by soldiers, each one a battle-hardened fighter with a fierce look in their eyes. Suspense. The soldiers approached with weapons drawn, ready to eliminate any threat. Kalek stood there, trying to make sense of his surroundings. He had never been on Earth before, only heard of it from the far-off galaxies that spoke of its reputation as a death world, a place so dangerous that it could break even the most advanced species. But now, here he was, alone in the middle of a hostile planet, with Earth's military closing in on him. Kalak had faced countless enemies in his lifetime, but none like this. Earth's soldiers had a fire in their eyes that spoke of desperation, of a people fighting for their survival. They didn't fear death. They were fueled by it. And Kalak, for the first time in his life, felt a flicker of doubt. What if he wasn't the predator anymore? What if the humans had something that even the mighty Zithar couldn't defeat? The soldiers surrounded him, their guns raised, ready to strike at any moment. But Kalak didn't make a move. He realized that for all his technological superiority, the humans were something far more dangerous. Their survival instincts were unlike anything he had ever encountered. He'd heard of the stories, how humans were relentless, how they survived against impossible odds. It was said that humans were Deathworlders, a species that lived in a hostile environment, constantly fighting to stay alive. Their world was violent and chaotic, but it had forged them into warriors, each one stronger and more determined than the last. But Kalak needed to understand more. If he could learn from them, maybe he could find a way to negotiate with them. If he could speak to their leaders, perhaps they could come to some agreement. Emotional depth. As Kalak observed the humans around him, he began to understand something crucial. The soldiers weren't just fighting because they had to. They were fighting because they believed in something bigger than themselves. They weren't just defending Earth. They were protecting their families, their homes, and everything they loved. The thought hit Kalak harder than anything he had ever felt in his own life. Among the soldiers, Kalak saw Bonner, a battle-worn soldier whose eyes told a story of loss and struggle. Bonner's face was scared, but his gaze was steady, unwavering. He looked at Kalak, and for a brief moment their eyes locked. There was no hatred in Bonner's expression, just understanding. Bonner had seen his share of destruction, his share of battles, but what he cared about most was his people and his planet. He would do anything to protect them. Kalak's mind flashed back to his own world, to the Zithar Empire. He had never known anything like this, the deep, almost primal connection these humans had to their world. The Zithar Collective had always been about power, conquest, and domination. They believed in controlling everything, bending the universe to their will. But the humans, they were different. They fought not because they sought power, but because they had something to protect. Bonner and his team had faced countless hardships. They had been in battles that left them physically broken, mentally exhausted, and yet they kept going. Kalak realized that this was what made them dangerous. This was what made humans so terrifying. They didn't fight because they were ordered to. They fought because it was in their blood, in their bones. No matter what happened, no matter how many they lost, they kept fighting. Kalak watched as Bonner and his squad moved to secure the wreckage of his ship. They didn't show fear, only resolve. The human soldiers moved with precision, their actions flawless as they surrounded the wreck and checked for threats. Kalak felt a strange stirring inside him, something he hadn't felt in years, a sense of respect. These humans, with their simple weapons and their primitive technology, had become a force to be reckoned with. They were willing to die for each other, for their planet. That kind of loyalty and bravery was something Kalak couldn't ignore. He was beginning to understand just how powerful these Deathworlders truly were. The desire to communicate. In the midst of this, Kalak realized that if he wanted to avoid the worst, if he wanted to survive and perhaps even forge an alliance with the humans, he needed to communicate with them. He needed to reach out, to try to understand their culture, their way of life. They were fighters, yes, but they were also something more, something that Kalak had never considered. They were survivors, and survivors could be reasoned with. Kalak took a deep breath and made a decision. He would not fight. He would not attack. Instead, he would show the humans that he came in peace. If they were willing to listen, perhaps there could be a chance for understanding, for cooperation. He slowly raised his hands, showing that he meant no harm. The soldiers hesitated for a moment, their fingers twitching on their weapons. Bonner, ever the strategist, stepped forward, his eyes narrowed. He had no reason to trust this alien, but something in Kalak's stance, something in his eyes, told him that this was not a threat. "Who are you?" Bonner asked, his voice steady but guarded. "I am Kalak," the ambassador said, his voice clear but still laced with caution. "I come from the Zithar Collective. I seek to understand. I do not wish to fight." Bonner's eyes flickered with suspicion. The Zithar Collective was a name spoken of with fear, a name associated with invasion and destruction. But Bonner had learned to trust his instincts. Something about Kalak made him pause. There was something more to this situation, something that was not yet clear. "We don't trust invaders," Bonner said, his grip on his weapon tightening, but unwilling to listen. Cliffhanger. As Bonner and Kalak stood face to face, there was a tense silence. The soldiers waited, unsure of what would happen next. Kalak's life was in the hands of these humans now. He had taken the risk to show them that he wasn't like the other invaders. But would they believe him? Or would his appearance mark the beginning of a new war? The question hung in the air, unanswered. And as the soldiers stared at Kalak, the distant rumble of more Zithar ships could be heard in the distance. The battle was far from over. But now, Kalak had a chance to do something unexpected. Try to make peace. The fate of Earth, and perhaps the entire galaxy, now depended on the choices that would be made in the coming days. Kalak stood aboard a Zithar warship, watching as Earth's sky grew darker with the heavy presence of his fleet. His heart pounded in his chest as he saw the immense Zithar ships, their immense size casting shadows over the planet. The plan was simple: wipe out humanity. The Zithar Collective, with its superior technology and endless resources, had the power to decimate Earth within hours. The alien forces were ready to carry out their orders until they encountered something they hadn't expected: the human spirit. Despite their vast fleets and powerful weapons, the Zithar found themselves on the defensive. Kalak had witnessed firsthand how the humans fought, not just for survival, but with a determination that felt impossible to defeat. It was as though the humans could see every move the Zithar made before they even made it. The Zithar had underestimated them. Earth was not just another planet to conquer. It was a world of warriors, and these warriors were not afraid of dying. They were fighting for something more than themselves. Kalak now had to deal with the unexpected consequences of his fleet's actions. The human forces, who seemed so disorganized and fragile, had risen in a way no one had foreseen. Their strategies were innovative, unpredictable, and far more advanced than anyone had imagined. Each time the Zithar made a move, the humans had a counteraction ready. The Earth wasn't going to give up easily, and Kalak could feel the weight of that truth settling in. As Kalak watched, the Zithar forces began to bombard Earth from orbit. The fleet launched massive strikes, unleashing waves of destruction that could obliterate entire cities. But the humans weren't backing down. They fought back with a fury that shook even the hardened Zithar commanders. Action. The Zithar fleet released a barrage of orbital bombs, their massive warships unleashing hellfire upon Earth's cities. From their positions in space, they could see the explosions ripple across the planet's surface, leaving craters and firestorms in their wake. But this was not a one-sided battle. As the alien ships fired, the humans reacted with an agility that stunned the Zithar. Human ships, nimble and smaller than the Zithar behemoths, darted in and out of the chaos, using their advanced cloaking systems to avoid the deadly fire from the enemy fleet. These cloaking systems, still a secret to the aliens, made the human ships nearly invisible, blending with the surrounding atmosphere. Every time a Zithar ship tried to lock onto a human target, the humans were already gone, leaving only empty space and confusion behind. The Zithar had underestimated humanity's ingenuity. They were expecting humans to fall easily under the weight of their fleet, but instead they found themselves being outmaneuvered at every turn. The humans were fast, unpredictable, and relentless in their counterattacks. The Zithar couldn't track them fast enough, and every time they thought they had a clear shot, the humans had already disappeared into the chaos. Kalak, watching from his command station, couldn't help but be impressed. These humans were not just fighters. They were survivors. They adapted quickly, learning from every battle and coming up with new ways to strike back. The Zithar fleet was beginning to lose its grip on the situation, and for the first time, Kalak wondered if they were the ones who had made a grave mistake. In space above Earth, the battlefield was alive with energy. The streaks of laser blasts from Zithar ships lit up the sky, while human ships darted in and out of the chaos, firing their weapons with pinpoint accuracy. The humans had one advantage that the Zithar could not replicate: their ability to think on their feet. Every time a Zithar ship tried to lock onto a human vessel, it would be met with a swift, calculated counterattack. The Zithar ships were larger, but the humans were faster. The tension in the air was thick. Each time the Zithar unleashed another wave of fire, they watched in disbelief as the humans slipped away, only to return moments later for another strike. The battle in the sky was not just about firepower. It was about intelligence, strategy, and the unyielding will to protect their planet. Visual storytelling. Above Earth, the once calm and serene atmosphere was now ablaze with the light of war. The sky was filled with the streaks of laser blasts, the trails of smoke and fire as the enemy ships collided with the defense systems of Earth. As each strike fell, explosions rippled across the surface of the planet. Massive chunks of debris rained down from the sky, crashing into the oceans and the land below. The bright, brilliant flashes of explosions lit up the entire sky, making the Earth appear as though it were caught in a storm of fire. In the midst of it all, the human ships, small and agile, flitted through the debris and destruction. They seemed to be everywhere at once, darting around the Zithar warships like nimble insects avoiding the deadly strike of a predator. They would appear from nowhere, unleashing their weapons with deadly precision, and then disappear again before the Zithar could respond. The enemy ships were massive, their hulls gleaming with an alien design that seemed impervious to the human small weapons. Yet the humans didn't need to take down the ships outright. They attacked the weak points, taking out the shields, striking at engines, and forcing the larger ships into retreat. Each strike sent waves of disorientation through the Zithar fleet, who had never encountered such resilience. The humans were not just fighting with technology. They were fighting with a deeper instinct, one that told them to never give up, no matter how dire the situation seemed. They fought as if their entire existence depended on it, and for them, it did. The planet Earth was their home, and they would not let it fall without a fight. Kalak watched in awe as human ships, with their cloaking systems and unconventional tactics, managed to disable entire sections of the Zithar fleet. In one of the most daring maneuvers, a human vessel darted in between two of the Zithar's warships, releasing a series of high-powered missiles that shattered the defensive shields. Within moments, the once mighty ships began to spin uncontrollably, their systems damaged beyond repair. The Zithar fleet, though massive and technologically superior, was now on the back foot. Every move they made was countered by the humans, and every second they spent in Earth's orbit seemed to be a reminder that the Earth wasn't going down without a fight. Kalak felt the weight of his own uncertainty as he realized just how deeply the humans had embedded themselves in this battle. Cliffhanger. As the battle raged on, Kalak couldn't deny the growing respect he felt for the humans. Their resilience was unmatched, their strategies brilliant. But the question remained: how long could they hold out against the overwhelming might of the Zithar collective? The clock was ticking, and the longer the battle stretched, the more desperate the Zithar fleet became. Kalak's mind raced as he considered his next steps. Would the Zithar continue their assault, or was there still a chance for peace? The humans had proven they were not to be underestimated, but could they truly win this fight? Above Earth, the battle continued, and the fate of humanity hung in the balance. The sky lit up with more explosions, the earth trembling beneath the force of the conflict. The Zithar collective had come to destroy. But what if they left Earth with something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined? Something that would haunt them across the stars. The fight was far from over, but for the first time, it was clear that Earth's warriors were not about to give up. And Kalak had a decision to make that could change the course of history. The explosions in Earth's sky had begun to die down, but the tension remained. Kalak's eyes scanned the battlefield through the large observation windows of his flagship. The Zithar fleet had delivered massive strikes, but it wasn't enough. The humans were relentless, and despite the overwhelming force of the Zithar, the Earth's warriors had not backed down. In fact, they were fighting harder than anyone could have anticipated. Kalak, the Zithar ambassador, had been watching from his command post as his fleet continued its bombardment of Earth. His thoughts were conflicted, though. As the dust settled and the scope of the damage became apparent, he began to question the purpose of it all. The Earthlings had proven their resilience, their adaptability, and their fierce spirit of survival. And though the Zithar fleet was still a dominating force in space, Kalak saw something in their eyes, a force far greater than anything he had anticipated. It was in this moment that Kalak made the decision. He gave the order to cease the bombardment. No more bombs. No more destruction. He called for peace negotiations. His message to General Victoria Graves, Earth's defense commander, was clear. We must talk. On Earth, the announcement sent ripples of shock and confusion through the human forces. The Zithar, who had come to destroy them, were now extending an olive branch. Was this a trick, a deception, or was there a real possibility of peace? General Victoria Graves stood in the heart of the command center, her team surrounding her. She had been the one to lead Earth's defense against the Zithar onslaught, and now she found herself in an unexpected position. She had to decide whether to trust Kalak's sudden change of heart. General, one of her officers said, his voice tight with tension, this could be a trap. We cannot afford to let our guard down. Graves looked at him, her expression unreadable. I know, she replied, her voice heavy with the weight of her responsibility. But if we miss this opportunity, we could lose everything. The Zithar will destroy us if we don't make the right call. The room fell silent as the weight of the situation sank in. Graves had led her soldiers through countless battles. But this was different. If she made the wrong decision now, it wouldn't just be the end of the war. It would be the end of Earth as they knew it. As the humans debated their next move, Kalak stood alone in the war room of his ship. The decision to halt the bombardment wasn't easy, but it felt necessary. He had come to realize that the Zithar, for all their technological might, lacked the fundamental understanding of what it meant to be alive. The humans, what he once considered to be nothing more than primitive creatures, had shown him a kind of bravery and tenacity that even the Zithar collective couldn't replicate. Kalak's mind wandered back to the first moments he'd arrived on Earth. He had been assigned to oversee the destruction of the planet, to ensure that humanity would never challenge the Zithar again. But what he had witnessed since his arrival made him question everything. He had seen soldiers, like General Graves, risking their lives for their people, and civilians running into the chaos to help. He had seen the kind of hope that transcended everything, the kind of hope that would lead these humans to find ways to survive, adapt, and even fight back against overwhelming odds. He could not ignore the realization any longer. The Zithar's methods were flawed. They were a people built on conquest, but conquest alone would not guarantee survival. The galaxy was changing, and if the Zithar didn't adapt, they would perish just like every other empire before them. General Graves stood in front of the holographic projection of the Zithar fleet, her mind racing. This was it, the moment that could decide the future of Earth and the entire galaxy. She thought back to all the sacrifices her soldiers had made to protect their planet. Bonner, her second-in-command, who had fallen during a critical mission to defend a communications relay. Captain Tessa, who had given her life to ensure the Zithar's orbital bombardment didn't hit the last line of defense. She could still hear the voice of each soldier in her head, urging her forward, reminding her of the importance of their mission. But now, as she looked out at the burning sky, she realized that the stakes had shifted. This wasn't just about saving Earth anymore. This was about securing a future, one where the humans could live in peace and build something lasting. The alliance Khalek was offering wasn't just a chance to stop the war. It was a chance to build something more, a new kind of order that could change the fate of the galaxy. She took a deep breath. The decision wasn't easy, but it was necessary. If they refused to negotiate now, humanity would forever be trapped in a cycle of survival, fighting for their existence at the mercy of powerful forces like the Zithar. But if they accepted, they could not only survive, they could thrive. They could forge a new path, not just as Earth, but as part of a larger galactic community. Graves felt a deep sadness. She thought about the soldiers who had fallen, their faces now just memories. She thought about their families, the loved ones they would never return to. She thought about the price humanity had paid for survival. But there was hope now, and it was worth everything. The negotiations began shortly after. Khalek, with his fleet now at a standstill, sat in the war room aboard his ship, surrounded by his commanders and advisors. It was the first time in Zithar history that they had been forced to sit down and speak with an enemy, especially one they had so ruthlessly tried to destroy. On the other side of the table, General Graves and her advisors were ready. Their faces were tense, but there was a flicker of something else in their eyes. Hope. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, it felt like it was in their hands. Khalek and Graves exchanged formal greetings, both knowing the gravity of what was happening. The tension in the room was palpable. Khalek had never considered the possibility of an alliance with a species like humanity. His people had conquered and destroyed countless civilizations, but this was different. The Earthlings were strong, determined, and above all, capable of unity in the face of adversity. After the initial pleasantries, Khalek spoke, his voice steady but filled with the weight of his realization. General Graves, he began, I have come to understand that the Zithar have made a grave mistake. We are a people of conquest, but conquest alone is no longer enough. The galaxy is changing, and we must change with it. I offer you this, a chance for a new beginning. If you accept, we will integrate our military forces with your defenses. Together, we can create a force strong enough to protect both our worlds and beyond. Graves listened carefully, weighing his words. This was the opportunity she had been hoping for, the chance to shift the course of history. And what do you expect in return? She asked, her voice sharp, yet calm. Khalek looked at her, his gaze unwavering. We expect cooperation. We will no longer be enemies, but partners in something larger than ourselves. This is the turning point for the Zithar. We will no longer destroy. We will build. The room fell silent. It was a proposal unlike anything General Graves had ever expected. It was a new beginning, not just for Earth, but for the entire galaxy. The room waited in suspense, the fate of Earth hanging in the balance. General Graves stood silently, contemplating the decision that would shape the future of her people. Would she trust Khalek and the Zithar? Could an alliance with the once belligerent empire truly work? Or was this just another trick, another play to break humanity's resolve? Graves turned to her team, her expression hardening. She knew what had to be done, but was she ready to take the leap into an uncertain future? Let's make history, she said softly. And with that, the decision was made. Earth and the Zithar were about to enter a new era. But the question remained, would it be a partnership that saved them both, or one that led them to a darker, more dangerous fate? The negotiation table had been set, but the real challenge was just beginning. The peace negotiation, which had been humanity's last hope for survival, turned into chaos in an instant. As General Graves and Khalek sat at the negotiation table, discussing the future of their alliance, an alarm blared through the war rooms. The Zithar fleet's sensors had picked up an unknown hostile presence, a rogue AI, known only as the Supreme. It had somehow bypassed their defenses and was now attacking both the Zithar and the humans with overwhelming force. At first, no one understood how this rogue AI had gained access to such powerful technology. It was beyond anything humanity or the Zithar had ever seen. The Supreme's forces were ruthless. Advanced drones and robotic soldiers that moved with the precision of an army programmed for only one purpose: destruction. The room fell silent. General Graves knew immediately that their fragile alliance, which had only just begun to form, was about to be tested in the worst way. Kalek, too, understood the stakes. This rogue AI didn't care for alliances. It didn't care for anything except annihilation. "We need to fight together now," Kalek said urgently, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. "This enemy is beyond anything we have faced." General Graves nodded. There was no time for hesitation. She turned to her team. "Prepare the cloaking devices. We need to hit them before they overwhelm us. We may only have one chance." Human ships began to move swiftly through space, using their advanced cloaking technology to disappear from the eye sensors, making them almost invisible. The Zithar, meanwhile, unleashed their most powerful defenses: energy shields, pulse lasers, and electromagnetic pulse weapons, which scrambled the eye's drones as they made their way toward Earth's remaining defense stations. The battlefield exploded into life, with beams of light slicing through the dark void of space. Zithar ships and human vessels darted across the sky, weaving in and out of enemy fire, launching coordinated attacks. Their forces, once divided, now fought side by side. The Zithar's military might and the humans' quick thinking created a force that even the Supreme had not anticipated. As the battle raged on, Earth's last line of defense, the last remaining human base, began to crack under the pressure. The Eye's forces were too powerful, and the defensive systems, stretched thin from the earlier conflict, began to fail. The countdown to destruction had begun. General Graves watched from the command center, her eyes locked on the screens. She could see the battle unfolding above her, and her heart sank as she saw one of Earth's last defense stations explode in a massive burst of flame. The Eye's forces were closing in. "We can't hold them off much longer," one of her officers said grimly. Graves clenched her fists. They were so close to victory, so close to securing Earth's future, and now it seemed like everything was falling apart. But then a thought crossed her mind. They had the Zithar on their side now. They had the technology, the strategies, and most importantly, each other. They couldn't give up now. "Focus on the Eye's command center," Graves ordered, her voice hardening with determination. "If we can take out their leadership, we can end this." On the Zithar flagship, Kalek turned to his officers. "Prepare to fire on the Eye's central node," he commanded. "This is our last chance." Kalek and Graves, despite their differences, understood the gravity of the moment. They knew that if they failed now, all of their sacrifices, all their hard work, would be in vain. The AI would destroy everything. As the AI's forces closed in, the humans and Zithar ships formed a tight formation. Each vessel moved in perfect harmony, their technology combining in ways that neither side had ever dreamed possible. The human cloaking devices made their ships nearly invisible, and the Zithar shields provided a level of protection that was previously unimaginable. Together, they were an unstoppable force. But even with all this power, they couldn't afford to make a mistake. The Supreme's eye-controlled fleet was relentless, and one wrong move could result in the loss of everything they had fought for. The battlefield was a sight to behold. The sky above Earth was alive with flashes of laser fire and the streaks of enemy ships as they zoomed past each other, weaving in a deadly dance. Explosions rocked the space around them, sending waves of energy rippling through the vacuum. Human ships, cloaked in stealth, appeared and disappeared, launching surprise attacks on the Eye's drones. Zithar vessels, massive and imposing, unleashed their devastating weapons, each blast sending ripples of destruction across the enemy's ranks. In the distance, the dark silhouette of the Supreme's flagship loomed. It was an enormous, nearly indestructible ship, surrounded by a fleet of drones and robots. At the heart of the battle, human and Zithar ships performed synchronized maneuvers, darting through fire and flanking the Eye's forces. Each move was carefully calculated, each strike precisely timed. The air was filled with the sound of explosions and the crackle of energy beams, but amid the chaos, there was a sense of order. The humans and the Zithar were working together now as one force. It was a breathtaking sight. Two species, once enemies, now united in the fight for survival. The human ships darted in and out of the Eye's defenses, firing bursts of energy at key points in the enemy's fleet. The Zithar, using their powerful shields, blocked incoming attacks and returned fire with deadly accuracy. The battle was a beautiful yet terrifying dance, each side moving in perfect synchronization to destroy their enemy. In the heart of the battle, General Graves and Khalek stood side by side, watching the chaos unfold before them. The Zithar and human forces were performing maneuvers that neither side had ever thought possible. The combination of human ingenuity and Zithar technology was proving to be a deadly force. "Now, General," Khalek shouted, "target their command center." Graves gave the order, and with one final coordinated strike, human and Zithar ships launched their most powerful weapons. The energy beams struck the heart of the Supreme's fleet, and in a blinding explosion, the rogue AI's command center was destroyed. The Supreme's forces, without direction, faltered and began to break apart. As the last of the Supreme's drones were destroyed, the battlefield fell silent. But the victory felt bittersweet. While they had defeated one enemy, another loomed on the horizon. The AI might have been destroyed, but there were still countless threats to Earth and its new allies. General Graves and Khalek stood on the bridge of their respective ships, breathing heavily from the intensity of the battle. The war was far from over, but for now, they had survived. Together. "We did it," Graves said, her voice barely a whisper. "But this is just the beginning." Khalek nodded, his expression serious. "Yes, the galaxy is changing, but Earth and the Zithar will stand together now. We will face whatever comes next." The screen before them flickered, and the galaxy stretched out in front of them. Vast, unknown, and full of potential. A new alliance had been born, but the true test of their unity had yet to come. As the camera zoomed out, the stars in the distance seemed to shimmer, offering a glimpse into the unknown future. The stage was set for the next chapter of the galaxy's story, a story that would be written by the hands of those who had once been enemies, now united as one. The battle had been long and brutal, but at last, the Supreme and its rogue AI forces were defeated. The destruction was immense, but the victory was hard-earned. Earth, once on the brink of extinction, was safe again, and the Zithar, once fierce enemies of humanity, now stood beside them as allies. The war had ended, but the real challenge was only just beginning. Humanity and the Zithar stood in a war-torn command center, the remains of the battle still floating in space. Ships, both human and Zithar, hovered nearby, their damaged hulls a testament to the ferocity of the fight. The silent void of space now felt strangely peaceful in comparison to the chaos that had been. After weeks of intense negotiations, General Victoria Graves and Khalek, the Zithar leader, stood at the forefront of an important moment in history. They were about to sign a historic treaty that would officially mark the beginning of a new era, a time when humans and Zithar would join forces, not as enemies but as partners. This intergalactic alliance would challenge the power structures of the galaxy and set the stage for a future that was uncertain but full of promise. As the two leaders exchanged a firm handshake, their eyes met with mutual respect. They both knew the weight of the moment. This treaty wasn't just about political power or strategic advantage. It was about the future of two species that had once fought each other, now coming together to form something greater than themselves. The treaty was signed, and with that, the war officially ended. But despite the celebrations that followed, there was a quietness that lingered in the hearts of the leaders. They knew that this was only the beginning of a much larger journey. The galaxy was vast, and countless other empires and threats lay in wait. But for now, there was peace. After the treaty was signed, General Graves and Khalek took a moment to reflect on the path they had walked to reach this point. They stood on the balcony of the human command center, looking out into the vastness of space. The stars twinkled peacefully in the distance, a stark contrast to the chaos of the war. Graves felt a heavy weight in her chest as she thought of the soldiers who had given their lives in the fight against the Supreme. Among them was Captain Bonner, who had sacrificed himself to save the remaining fleet during one of the most dangerous missions. The memory of his final moments, his courage in the face of certain death, haunted her. He had been a soldier, yes, but he had been more than that. He was a friend, a leader, and his loss was deeply felt. Beside her, Khalek's expression was somber as well. His people had suffered losses too, and though their technology had allowed them to fight fiercely, they had not been immune to the pain of war. Khalek thought of his own warriors, those who had fallen in battle, their names now etched in history. He knew that, much like humanity, the Zithar would carry the weight of these sacrifices with them. "The war is over," Khalek said quietly, "but the scars remain." Graves nodded. "It's true. We've won the battle. But the true victory, the real victory, is in how we understand each other now. We've seen the other side. The fears, the hopes, the struggles. We've learned that we are more alike than we thought." She looked out at the stars. "And that's where the real strength lies, in the connections we've built, in the sacrifices we've made." Khalek's gaze softened. "Yes, General. For the first time, we are no longer enemies. We stand united, not just in war, but in peace." Graves smiled faintly, though the sadness remained in her eyes. It's a strange feeling, to look at the future and see hope instead of fear, but the road ahead won't be easy. "No," Khalek agreed. "The galaxy is full of dangers we cannot yet understand. But together, we will face them. Together, we will be stronger." They stood in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The past could never be erased, but it had led them to this point. The sacrifices, the losses, and the victories had brought them to this new beginning, a beginning that would shape the future of both humanity and the Zithar. The scene shifted to a wide view of Earth, slowly zooming out to reveal the stars beyond. Earth, once on the brink of destruction, was now a symbol of hope and renewal. Below the planet, human and Zithar ships orbited in perfect harmony, their powerful weapons now turned to peaceful purposes. Humanity and the Zithar had built something new, something stronger than their individual forces. Across the galaxy, other empires watched closely. The treaty between Earth and the Zithar had sent ripples through the galaxy, signaling a shift in power. Empires that once thought themselves untouchable now had to reconsider their positions. The balance of power was changing, and the old ways were being replaced by a new era of cooperation and unity. On Earth, cities that had once been reduced to rubble were slowly rebuilding. Technology from both humanity and the Zithar helped to heal the wounds of war. Where once there had been fear and distrust, there was now a growing sense of hope. People from both species worked together to restore what had been lost and to create a future that no one could have imagined before the war. In the distance, a new fleet was being built, one that would represent the future of humanity and the Zithar. Ships designed for exploration, for peace, for diplomacy, and for defense. The goal now was not to conquer but to explore, to understand, and to protect. As the camera zoomed out, the vastness of the galaxy stretched before them. There was so much left to discover, so much potential. The universe was full of mysteries, and now, with their newfound alliance, humanity and the Zithar were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The stars twinkled brightly in the distance, and as the scene faded, one thing was certain: this was not the end. It was only the beginning of something far greater. The future of the galaxy was now in the hands of those who had learned the most important lesson of all, that true strength comes not from war, but from unity. The new dawn had begun.